Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Look, Bumble knows you're exhausted by dating. All the must not take yourself too seriously and 6'1" since that matters. And what do I even say other than hey? Well, that's why they're introducing an all-new Bumble with exciting features to make compatibility easier, starting the chat better, and dating safer. They've changed, so you don't have to. Download the new Bumble now.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Vicki Connor. Together, we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. And today, we are headed back once again to the little mountain town of Joseph to find out what's new in Northeast Oregon.
Vicki, I've decided there's always something new to do in Joseph, in part because I think there's just like so much to do, like in and around town. I realized my recent trip to Joseph, which I just went to last week, by my count now, I visited Joseph 6 times over the last 8 years, which I think is more times than I visited like any other town in Oregon. And I still haven't run out of things to do and see there.
6 times in 8 years is actually pretty impressive considering like it's pretty far out there. And I've only been one time, not 6 times, but one time in, I guess, 3 years now. And I loved Joseph a lot. And I'm hoping to get there at some point over the summer.
I mean, that's the thing. I feel like it sounds excessive going that often. But like I have rarely done the same thing twice. Like, you know, when you and I went there last for a Peak Northwest video, that was what, 2 years ago, I think now at this point. You know, we did the tram and we did what else did we do? We kind of did all those little towns. Yep. Went to the old Gold Room Pizza, which is no longer there. Yep. And saw like, you know, the concert down by the lake in a landscape. I mean, that was incredible. That was like a great trip there, but we barely scratched the surface of the things you can do.
I am quite impressed with what Little Joseph has to offer.
Yeah, so that was kind of my how I was going into this recent trip. So I was there for 3 nights, and I was just like, what are some more of the things I haven't done here yet? In addition to just sort of like bopping around town and seeing like what's new, popping into a couple of places that like, you know, I always go to, or places that like I really enjoy. The Blythe Cricket, for example, for breakfast. Arrowhead Chocolates, got to stop in there. But it was just sort of like, what's new, what's going on, and what can I see and do here this time?
Amazing. I'm excited to get into this, especially since it's been, you know, a couple of years since I've been there. So you need to tell me everything that is new, but I don't know if we have time for every single detail.
Yeah, well, I'll do this instead of doing this like chronologically like we often do. I'll just like, let's get the highlights. Let's talk about some individual things that I found this time around.
Let's start off with where you stayed, because as I remember, if I'm correct, the place where we stayed last, remind me of the name of that?
The Jennings Hotel.
The Jennings Hotel is no longer there, no longer the Jennings Hotel.
I believe it's still there. It is in the process of being sold.
Oh, I see.
I last I talked to the Jennings, they're still open. They're still booking. It's just like they're trying to find new owners for it. So you can keep looking at the Jennings, but I chose to stay somewhere different because I stayed at the Jennings twice already before. And I always try to stay somewhere new if I can. And that was kind of how I figured out when I was thinking about how many times I've been in Joseph previously. I was like, let me think back to all the places I've stayed. And that's how I figured that out. But this time I stayed at a new place called the Kokanee Inn. Kokanee. Kokanee. And this is a place that it's sort of like a modern bed and breakfast vibe. The woman who owns it, Madeline Lau, is the former manager at the Wallowa Lake Lodge where I stayed last time. And she had like taken over Wallowa Lake Lodge and sort of modernized it, really brought in sort of that communal feel to it, added a lot of spaces so people can sort of like hang out together, brought in some good food. And she now purchased the Kokanee Inn, left Wallowa Lake Lodge, moved over here, and she's brought a lot of that same vibe to it. So what I love about the Kokanee is that there's like a lot of really good outdoor seating. A lot of like really comfy, kind of like reclining, rocking chairs and like tables. And, there's this beautiful garden around there. And they serve breakfast to everybody in the morning. It's sort of like, a big communal table breakfast style, but you can take your breakfast out in the garden if you want. It's lovely. And I got, they have a bunch of rooms there, but I got what they call the cabin, which is like just a little 1-bedroom, small, it's I guess kind of a cabin. It's just sort of off the main building a little bit, where there's a full kitchen where you can do some cooking. And I was interested in doing that. I don't want to knock the Joseph food scene too hard. It's just, there's a lot of like burgers and beer in Joseph's, a lot of like cowboy saloons. And like, the old cowboy saloon was taken over by new owners who have made it a new cowboy saloon. It's like that kind of vibe. And that's just, I can only do that so much. So I was like, let me just like bring some food. I'll cook, and just enjoy things that way. So the cabin was a great way to do some cooking and, also get some breakfast in the morning and have a nice place to stay. It's right downtown. It's very convenient.
Amazing. Did Sadie join you on this trip or was this a solo trip?
No, this is a solo trip. Yeah, Sadie decided she did not want to do that big of a travel for that many days. It's a lot of driving. I mean, Joseph is like a 6-hour drive, a little bit longer depending on how you go. So that's a long time in the car.
Yeah. And love that you took advantage of having the kitchen there. Did you end up like, is there a grocery store? It has to be a grocery store in Joseph, or were you hauling stuff from Portland to cook with?
There's a grocery store in Joseph. There's also like a Safeway and Enterprise. There's like a natural grocery store in town, but I just bought stuff in Portland. Okay. I just went to, like the new seasons before I left town. And, I like going to my grocery store. I know what they have. They got the stuff I like. I go to the bulk section and I get the, the granola that I like. You know what I mean? Like, it's just easier for me to know the food that I wanted to eat.
What time did you end up getting into Kokanee Inn?
I think I got there at like around 4 or 5 or so. I stopped off at like a little state park on the way that I hadn't been to before. Catherine Creek State Park. It's like out there, but it's a place I'd wanted to check out. And so I sort of took a little bit of a longer route and left town like at a reasonable hour. I like to like get to Joseph with no rush. I don't want to like give myself a thing to do in the afternoon. So I can just sort of like have a nice leisurely drive, stop if I need to, that sort of thing. So I just, I think it was like a 6-hour drive, maybe 6.5-hour drive to get there.
Yeah. So overall, you enjoyed Kokanee Inn? You would return?
Absolutely. No, this is a great spot. I highly recommend Kokanee Inn. My cabin room, which again had like more amenities, was $220 a night, which is like on the more expensive end of things, but it's, when you take into consideration, having that kitchen and not going out to eat every night, or twice a time, 2 times a day, like, and the fact that comes with breakfast I think it's a pretty good deal, honestly. And they were, really, really lovely to work with and, really accommodating. So I definitely would recommend this place. Walking distance into town. So I like a few times I would just like walk into town and get coffee and come back and eat their breakfast. And it worked out really nicely.
Looks super cute from what I've seen online.
Yeah.
You enjoyed the Kokanee Inn, a new place to stay for you. What else were some highlights here in Joseph?
The big highlight for me, and this is sort of the thing I was the most excited about going in, was doing this. I mean, what series of words do I say this in? It's a light up clear kayak at night on Wallowa Lake. That makes sense?
Yes. And it sounds really dreamy, honestly.
This is one of those things that like this company, Joe Paddle, has been doing this for a couple of years on Wallowa Lake. And it's one of those things that like, it gets on social media and it goes viral, and they said it's now become like a bucket list thing for people. So they get people from all over the world coming in specifically to do this like light up nighttime kayak on Wallowa Lake. So it's a little buzzy as a thing. And so I know a lot of locals I talk to are like, yeah, I don't know. It's like that thing that people come in and do. But I went with a friend of mine who lives in town, and it's a 2-person kayak, each of the kayaks. So um, I was like, I have an extra seat, come join me. We'll catch up. And we both loved it. It was like to be out on Wallowa Lake at night in general, very cool opportunity. Just to sort of be out there. We kind of went out at sunset. So like the sun had just gone down over the mountains, still kind of light out. And by the time we left, all the stars were up. So it was just like really, really dreamy.
That sounds so cool. I've been in a clear kayak before, like in Lake Tahoe, and when the
Mm-hmm.
water is just so clear and amazing, it is cool to just paddle through it. But I've never done it at night. Is there
Yeah.
what's the benefit of the clear kayak like at night with the lights? Is there anything that you can kind of see?
Yeah. Well, so aside from like they have like the strip of LED lights around the rim of each boat that kind of light up different colors. There's like a blue one and a red one and a green one. But then there's also, they put these like really bright LED lights on the bottom of the boat facing into the water. So it's going through the clear kayak to the water below. And like when you're out in the depths of the lake, it wasn't, you couldn't see a lot. And the caveat is that the lake had a lot of pollen in it. So it was a little bit murkier than usual. But when we went into the shallows, you could see right down to like the big granite boulders and like the fish swimming in the shallows and that kind of stuff. So we hung out for a while in that area, and just kind of like looked down and tried to spot all the fish in the shadows and stuff like that. It was very cool.
That is awesome. How many
Yeah.
people were with you kayaking?
There were 4 boats total, with 2 people each in them. So I guess there were 8 of us kayaking, and had been a couple more. I think he says he goes up to like 6 boats at max. Um, so you can get up to 12 people on a tour, which was just good. It was really fun to see the other people. I haven't done like a lot of kayak touring like that. So it was really fun to be out there with other people and to sort of see like their joy. It was infectious, and we all like, got to go through this experience together. At the very end of the night, the guide goes around and turns off the lights on all your boats. He leaves the bottom ones on so he can see you, but he turns off all the sort of the colored rim lights and like lets you everyone just sort of float there and like just in the quiet of the lake and like under the stars and all of that. And it was just like so magical, so nice.
Sounds so peaceful and like such a
Yeah.
lovely time. Did your friend who joined you, who is local to Joseph, like had they done this before, or this was also their first time experiencing it?
It was his first time too. And he had said like, it's one of those things that locals like, you never do because it's like, oh, well, it's here. I could do it anytime. And then you just never do it. It's like a lot of Oregonians going to Crater Lake. It's like, oh yeah, I could go to Crater Lake, and you never go. But he was like, I'm so glad I did this because it was like really cool. And now he's like, I got to take my canoe out onto Wallowa Lake at night now when you get like a nice full moon.
Yeah.
And come back and have this kind of experience again.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And how long in total about was the trip?
I want to say it was about an hour and a half or so, that ended up being. We ended up getting a little bit of a late start. But so I think he was rushing it a little bit, but I think it was right about an hour and a half. And they do a bunch of different types of tours. This one is $165 a person, I think, because of like all of the, I think the liability issues of being in a boat at night like this. But they also do like regular clear kayaking tours during the day. They do glass bottom stand-up paddle boards. They do regular kayak rentals. Joe Paddle, they've got a space downtown, and they just do a bunch of rentals down Wallowa Lake. So it's a great company. I like them a lot. It's a family-run business. The guide had his like 18-year-old daughter out there with him who was like helping him run it, which is really cool. He said his like 7-year-old daughter does like helps them out on tours also. So it's like a really sweet little family, like local family-run business. And I love that.
Amazing. Where did this fall within your trip? Was this one of the first days that you were there?
This is my second night there. So I drove in after that first. I had like that first night there, and then I had the full first day. And at the very end of that full first day, this is sort of how I capped it off. Was with this nighttime kayaking trip. So it was like a really nice way to be like. I think it was kind of like the middle point of the trip. I guess was this kayaking trip, and a really just such a great way to mark the trip. This is what I was looking forward to the most going to Joseph this time around, and it really did not disappoint. You know, it's something that could really easily be like kind of corny and kind of silly, but it was really nice, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh man, that's so cool. I would love to do that.
You should.
So
You should.
hopefully the Oregonian paid for that. So I need to figure out a way for that 165 to be covered.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's awesome. What is our next trip highlight here?
Well, so when I started talking to locals about like what's going on in town, like what's the deal here since over the last year, like where's the energy, where's it happening? They all said you've got to go check out M Crow. M Crow is like a 100-year-old general store not in Joseph, but it's in the small town of Lostine. Vicky, do you remember driving through Lostine?
I can't say that I can remember this. No.
do you remember? I feel like I've got something that might jog your memory, a detail about Lostine. Do you remember driving through a small town where there was a fake toddler on a tricycle on the side of the road?
This is terrifying. Yes. I can picture
That's
it.
Lostine.
Exactly.
It really gets you to slow down in a way that makes me upset. Don't do that, but it works. So I guess, I don't know. Lostine is like a really small town. It's like, you know, you have Joseph and then you have Enterprise and then you have Lostine. Yeah. There is a coffee shop there in town called the Blue Banana. There's an antique shop. There is like an old tavern that has apparently a really good barbecue restaurant I didn't get to called Z's. And then there is M Crow. So like I said, M Crow is a 100-year-old general store. But it was sold in, I want to say just the last decade or so or two to a guy who grew up locally, but has since went on to like become a furniture designer in New York.
Whoa.
So, Tyler Hayes is his name. And he, it's so hard to explain what M Crow is now. So it's still a general store. Like you can walk in and you can buy, you know, Tylenol, and you can buy ammo, and you can buy a knife, and you can buy like candy bar. They also serve pizza and salad. They brew their own beer. They make their own wine. But like Tyler also designs denim. So they have like handmade rodeo jeans. And like other denim there that you can buy. It's a little pricey. It's like $200 a pair, but like, again, they're handmade denim. He does ceramics, so you can buy like mugs that he's made, but like also, so the manager, Michael, is taking me through the restaurant. He's like, check this out. So he walked me in the kitchen and he said, look at the floor, all the tile on the floor. And it was like a bunch of these little sort of like octagonal tiles. And he said, we took clay that we harvested here in Wallowa County. We shipped it to Tyler in Philadelphia. He like handmade all of these hundreds, thousands of tiles, and then he shipped them back to us. The marble countertops, he cut by hand. Like all of like the leather bar stools, like the sort of like the bronze foot pedals, he made all of those. He made the bronze foot pedals. He made the leather. Like there's these old fashioned like wooden like refrigerator doors. And I was like, oh, cool. Like vintage. They didn't change that. And he's like, no, we built these. Tyler made these by hand. So they also have a radio station there that streams online. Like they do all kinds of stuff. When they're making their beer, they're trying to grow their barley, and they have like an experimental like wood-fired malting process for the barley that like they're just trying to do everything. And it seems to be working. So they're like really this weird like international like designer brand, but also a local general store. So you get people coming through buying like, MCRO gear. And then you have people like who live there just like hanging out and having pizza parties. And that balance is so interesting to me.
That is so interesting. Who is living in Lostine?
People.
Yeah.
Plenty of just people. Yeah. I saw a bunch of kids like, on their bikes because the school had just let out and they were biking around town, drinking like their weird smoothies from Blue Banana and, going into MCRO for like a candy bar. Like, it's
I
a
can't
really
say,
small town.
I can't say that I remember like anyone, like seeing a soul, like when we drove through, which, just driving through, but still, I like don't remember any people being out or around.
It's happening. I mean, like that MCRO plus the barbecue place is everyone's like the barbecue place is the new best restaurant in the area. So they're like something is happening there in that little town. I'm really interested to see what it looks like next year or the next couple of years because they seem to really have a lot of energy happening right there.
Super cool. Super cool. Did you get anything?
I got a couple slices of pizza, which were good. And I got a really good salad. And they have I can't believe I didn't mention this already. They have a pickled egg menu.
Ooh.
Apparently Tyler liked the look of pickled eggs of different colors. And so they just devised like 12 different varieties of pickled eggs. And so there's this whole menu and they've got like, he made little ceramic egg stands. So I got a couple eggs and they came in a little like egg holder for like 2 eggs. One of the eggs, it was like some sort of like, I think it was called like sweet Asian or something like that. And it was okay. But the one that was like a mustard turmeric was really quite good. It just tasted like a deviled egg.
Yeah.
But if you could flavor a hard boiled egg like a deviled egg, that's a weird thing to say, but that's exactly how it tasted.
Oh, yum. That's
yeah.
Did you bring home a pair of rodeo denim?
No. No.
Come on.
That's not quite my vibe. I thought about it for a second. I was like, I could. No, that's not me. That's not. Be true to yourself. Come on. But I love that he said that some people like rodeo stars are wearing this stuff now. So MCRO brand is getting out there.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, sweet. What's up next? I have to assume that you did a little hiking while you were in the area.
Yeah. I was like, I've done like a lot of the Eagle Cap Wilderness. I've gone to Hell's Canyon, I've done Zimmel. People like in the area when they don't know that I've been there 6 times in 8 years. They're like, oh, you're another tourist. Let me tell you where to hike. And they rattle off these places. And I'm like, yes, I've been to those places. I get it. So I went to a place that when I told them I was going here, they looked at me very skeptically. But I found this trail in Oregon Hiker's Guide online, and they have a bunch of different hikes kind of in the area. So I was like, let me go out of Joseph, out of Lostine, kind of just into that, the foothills of the Wallowa Mountains. And I found out this hike along the Wallowa River, which runs between the old Wallowa Railroad and the river. And so you're kind of walking along the railroad tracks, this sort of like beautiful scenic river on the other side of you. And these are kind of like big cliffs and rolling hills with wildflowers growing. It was like a 5.5 mile out and back. And it was really beautiful. Not the most comfortable hike, I would say. There's not really a trail per se. You're just kind of walking alongside the railroad track in like that kind of like loose gravel where like enough people have walked. So there's like a rough, like some of it's kind of like stamped down a little bit, but for parts of it, I was just like walking on like the railroad tracks themselves, which are not used commercially anymore, but like they take like the rail riders use them. And there's like a really slow scenic excursion train that uses it, stuff that like you could see coming and be like, oh, let me step off. So, there was no like stand by me experience where I was going to have to like run down the tracks. But it was really interesting. As uncomfortable as it was sort of walking that loose gravel, I was like walking between this, like the really like, parallel tracks, like the very ordered lines of the tracks and like the sort of like chaos of the river on the other side of me. there was like this cool sort of like meditative state I got into of like order and chaos and like, being in both of those things at once. It was really interesting. I don't know that I recommend this hike to everybody, but if you're into this kind of thing at all, it's really pretty interesting. I do feel like they're probably going to make this into a trail at some point. Again, if you want to see this and you want to do it more comfortably, just do the rail riding, honestly. But this is something that for folks who are a little, want to be a little adventurous or want to do strike off on their own, it's a really cool spot. There's some beautiful cliffs above the river that I walked by and saw so many flowers out there too. So that's the advantage of walking. You get to sort of stop and hang out and check out all the flowers, which I loved. So it was just a really cool experience. If you want to do it, it starts sort of by the Minum store. It's a little country store. And then up above it, there's a little parking area by the railroad tracks. So you can just park there and just walk along the tracks and do it.
Amazing. Any other hikes that you did while in Joseph?
That was it. Honestly, I had so many other things I was just doing and checking out. I did a lot of sort of walking in and out of town. Checked out like just sort of like what new shops are in town, popped into a new cafe. There's a new donut shop in town. They do donuts and take and bake pizza is their shtick.
Nice.
Pretty fun. Yeah, but I was sort of just focusing on paddling and doing that. So I feel like it felt a little early to get too high up in the Eagle Cap. Yeah. You're gonna run into snow before long, so I just kind of kept it in town.
Very cool. All right, what's next?
The sort of the last thing I wanted to highlight was this tour of the Valley Bronze of Oregon Bronze Foundry. This is the thing I did, I think, on my very first trip to Joseph. Okay. And it was very interesting. So Joseph is like a bronze town. I don't know if you remember noticing that when you were there.
I do, yeah.
Full of bronze statues everywhere. And they have this bronze foundry in town called Valley Bronze that has done they do like small works for like artists, but they also have done like, stuff for like DC monuments. They've got like an underwater statue and I think the Cayman Islands. Like they've done all kinds of stuff. And you can take tours of the Bronze Foundry to sort of get an idea. They show you sort of like how it works, how they make these bronze statues, because it's a really multi-step process. So my editor had said like, that sounds like a good video. Like let's go through and get a video of that tour. So I went back and did that, and I thought kind of like, oh, I've been here before, I know about it, and I did remember a lot of it, but it was just as interesting. Yeah. To sort of get a refresher and to see like all the various steps. Like they do like a wax model, they do like a cast, they do a lot of like sand blasting. And then there's like they hand you like a bronze brick of bronze that like you can hold. It's all very interesting and cool. And the tour guides are just like super nice and knowledgeable and friendly. And it's just cool to sort of walk through and see like this art meets industry kind of feel. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting thing to do and a good thing to check out. So they do tours regularly. Like I think they do one a day at like 11 a.m. So if you're looking to do that kind of thing in town, that's another great thing to do.
That's pretty unique. That's like a really cool thing. How like big is the space?
I mean, it's funny. It's like they take you into all these like smaller rooms, but there's like so many of them. It's like this little maze of little areas. Like there's the waxing area as like one little complex, and then there's like you walk through this little maze of doors and it's like, oh, here's like our weird casting room, which everything was just sort of like frosted and whatever this is that they're casting it in, and like it was just like this weird low hum of like these drums spinning, and then you walk out of that and it's like into the area where they pour the bronze, and then it's the area where they're like spraying them and doing all the coloring and all this stuff. So like it's just like this weird little I was going to say haunted house, but that's not right because it's not scary. But like you're just wandering into all these little rooms and there's something else. Someone's doing this different thing and there's strange smells and interesting sights. And it's just a funny little world you can pop into for like an hour.
Yeah. I love that. So cool. So Jamie, anything else that was new and noteworthy from your Joseph trip?
I mean, no, I feel like what I walked away feeling was what I feel every time I leave Joseph, which is like, God, there's still so much I could do here. And it's crazy to me because it's still like, I feel like I've done so much there. And I walk by being like, God, but I haven't done this. I haven't done that. I haven't done this. So I have this like list of things for like next time or for like next times to go back and check out. Chief among them, doing this rail riding thing. I've never done a rail riding. I know they have them everywhere. They've got them on the coast. They've got them in the Willamette Valley. Everyone in Joseph is like, oh, you got to do the rail riding. And I sort of feel like a lot of the locals do. I talked to my friend out there and he's like, yeah, that's another thing I feel like I don't really do because, it's a thing for tourists. But it also seems very fun. And I also am a tourist. So I feel like I just got to do it one of these days.
And how long is that compared to, like, I assume it goes much longer than the hike that you did.
Yeah, it goes much, much longer. I think like 4 or 5 times as long because you can get, along it much quicker. I think it's, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like a electrical assisted pedaling situation. So you're not under just strictly your own power, which is helpful, I think.
They need like some type of a stamp book to say where you've like rode the rails, did Mount Hood, did Joseph at the coast.
That's a good idea. You got to get in with their marketing people.
What else would you do next time?
Aneroid Lake is a hike up in the Wallowa Mountains that I really want to get to. I feel like I'm always there too early now. I often go to Joseph in like June. And I feel like when those backpacking trips, those big hikes up to the mountain lakes, you got to do in like August or July, or like early September. There's like a 2-month window you can go up there and do that stuff. And everyone is telling me like, oh yeah, Aneroid Lake is gorgeous. And I've done Ice Lake hike, which is sort of the most popular in that area, but Aneroid Lake is supposed to be very nice and beautiful. So that's kind of on my list for Eagle Cap wilderness hiking. And then of course, like, Hell's Canyon. I spent like a day driving through it, but like you can backpack around up there. I like to spend more time up there. It's just like so hard to get to. We've talked about this before. Driving up the Hell's Canyon on those washboard gravel roads for hours. It's like not the most fun drive, but it's incredible and it's beautiful. So at some point I just got to like, just gin up some energy and get out there and do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then, everyone told me like, you got to come on the 4th of July. They said it's crazy. It's insane here, but you got to do it.
Just like, is there some type of parade, like fireworks, the whole thing?
They do fireworks like crazy. They do fireworks on the lake, apparently.
Oh.
And like the town is packed with people. It's just like the time to go to Joseph. So when they told me this, I was like, boy, sounds like a time I'd like to avoid going.
Yeah.
But they're like, no. I know. I get it. It's crazy, but you gotta come. So I don't know. So I'm like curious about that. Yeah. I wouldn't say like I'm planning a 4th of July trip imminently, but like I'm interested in maybe doing that someday.
So cool. I imagine Joseph being the type of town that like really goes off for like holidays and stuff and like that small town community vibe. So
exactly,
I could see it being pretty cool.
And the last place I'll mention, I just want to, I think it's the last on my list here. I almost missed it, but the Minam River Lodge is a place I've been wanting to check out for a long time. And it is like, my understanding of it is sort of like a bougie lodge in the mountains that you can only get to by like hiking or like, packing or like, helicopter or whatever.
What?
I read about it in like the New York Times, and this that's like one of Oregon's coolest stays that is like above our budget. It's one. Wow. I've talked to my editor about this and she's like, no, that's too much. You gotta,
how much are we talking?
I mean, I want to say it's like $500 a night or something like that. Just a real quick Google shows me that the Minam River Lodge is, well, you can get a lodge room with a shared bath for like $245 a night. Okay. Individual cabins are $695 per night.
Okay.
Attached cabins are $595 per night. So you can get, we're talking like, anywhere from like $250 to $700 a night. It is on the higher end of things. And you do have to like really get out there, but boy, I'd love to check it out. I'm the sucker for like you have to hike in to get there.
Yeah. One of my friends like recently traveled to Italy and did this hike where like there were a bunch of like little cabins, and like the only way you got there was by hiking there. And like nice cabins, like luxurious cabins. And I'm like, is there anything like that around here? So that's kind of interesting to know.
Yeah. I feel like this is a place that probably books up quickly. But I don't know. I got to check it out one of these days.
This sounds like a bucket list item for sure. I will save my pennies until I can afford it.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, Jamie, I know you're not thinking of going this 4th of July, but when do you think you'll get back out to Joseph?
I don't know. When I realized I've been 6 times in 8 years, part of me was like, is that too much? Do I need to like go somewhere different? I just keep getting drawn back to it. So I don't know. I think, when I do my travel planning at the beginning of the year, I'll just see if I feel drawn to Joseph again, or not. And we'll just kind of go from there. But I definitely will be back again someday in the near future. Who knows when though?
Such a gem of Eastern Oregon.
True. So true. Well, folks, that will do it for us today. Until next time, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show. And if you want to support this podcast as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details at OregonLive.com/pod support. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you're interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@oregonian.com. This episode of the show is produced by me, Vicki Connor, alongside Jamie Hale.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.